Today, March 29th, 2017, was an historic day for the relationship between the UK and Europe, as Article 50 was triggered. Today, at around 12:20 this afternoon, the UK Ambassador to the EU, Sir Tim Barrow, delivered the letter to the European Parliament in Brussels, stating the UK's intention to leave the European Union. This was met obviously with the response you'd expect. European Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker called it a sad day for Europe. The entire letter, to around about 6 pages, will not entirely be actually published or made public. There are, I believe from watching the news last night, there was some commercially sensitive information, some confidential information in the letter, so I don't believe we'll see it all. We have seen quite a bit of it. It's like I said, quite a long letter. Looking at it now on the BBC News website, it is quite long. Basically, it's a letter addressed from Prime Minister Theresa May at 10 Downing Street to the European Council President Donald Tusk. The opening paragraph is pretty much says it all, in my opinion, saying on 23rd June last year, the people of the United Kingdom voted to leave the European Union. As I have said before, that decision was no rejection of the values we share as fellow Europeans, nor was it an attempt to do harm to the European Union or any of the remaining member states. On the contrary, the United Kingdom wants the European Union to succeed and prosper. Instead, the referendum was a vote to restore, as we see it, our national self-determination. We are leaving the European Union, but we are not leaving Europe, and we want to remain committed partners and allies to our friends across the continent. To be honest, in my opinion, it's a little bit of I don't know, I'm not sure the exact word to describe it, but that's certainly that opening paragraph. It's a little bit of so sorry we're leaving, we're leaving, so sorry, it's kind of backing up a little bit, saying, oh, we're leaving, but we're really sorry to be leaving, and I'll give my thoughts on about Scotland when I get to talk about Nicola Sturgeon, but it is a little bit, oh, we're leaving, but we like you, when we still want to be friends, kind of thing. That's what it seems to me, it's not an attempt to do harm to the European Union or any remaining member states, and we want the European Union to succeed and prosper. It's a little bit of, it's kind of screw you, but hope you're well in the future. Kind of catching down the road a little bit. In my opinion, that is what it is. That's kind of the way the letter, again, I'm not reading the whole thing out. People want to see, I'm sure. It's not just available on the BBC website, I'm sure wherever people are watching this, they can find a copy of it on their news websites, I'm sure. But Theresa May also made a statement to the House of Commons. Basically, again, I'm not going to read out because it's a very long statement. I've taken the transcript from the BBC News website. It lasts about 5 pages on Word document. So basically, it's her saying that today the government acts on the democratic will of the British people, and it acts too on the clear and convincing position of this House. A few minutes ago in Brussels, the United Kingdom's permanent representative to the EU handed a letter to the President of the European Council on my behalf confirming the government's decision to invoke Article 50 of the Treaty on European Union. Basically, that is just saying, again, like I said, it's just basically this is notice day. This is not really saying anything but a notice. There was one bit that I found, if I can find it again. But it basically says that she wants uh, to. No, she just basically. I can't find it again quickly, but it basically says um, that she wants the uh, yeah, just said basically that she wants to make laws and so forth that represent the UK and to strengthen the position against self determination of the UK. Again, obviously this all comes again from the referendum last year, and uh, it certainly it seems now, uh, although you're going through it, there doesn't seem to be an official date, unless I've missed it, or I don't think there is an official date on this at all. It just says that the bill was passed on March 13th and became an Act of Parliament after it received royal assent from Her Majesty the Queen on 16th of March, and so about 2 weeks later, it is now actually being carried out. That this Article 50 is now being taken care of. There's no. It doesn't seem. I don't believe there is an official date for UK to leave the European Union. There is now a negotiation period of about 2 years where various different things will have to be agreed upon. To be honest, in my opinion as well, I don't think 2 years is enough. For the last 9 months, there's just been this talk of we're leaving the European Union. There's we're leaving. That's all that's been repeated. I don't think there's been any really serious attempts to start negotiations. There's not been any attempts to really start to get a position on Europe or anything related to doing anything serious when it comes to negotiations. So I don't think that the whole of the negotiations will be able to be done in 2 years. I severely doubt it. There are so many things that have to be considered. The rights of European citizens here in the UK, the rights of UK citizens in Europe, freedom of movement, trade, economics, financial setups. I mean, I was even thinking earlier, I'm sure there are many European citizens who own businesses here. What rights will they have about operating businesses? What rights will they have to even stay or visit the UK, and vice versa, with the UK citizens to visit, other countries in Europe? And one of the things as well, I was also thinking earlier, watching one of the BBC. I know there's a lot of based BBC, but a very good series BBC has right now called Fugitives, where it's basically extradition units, mostly in Yorkshire and London, where the police are on the hunt for foreign nationals who are wanted by quite often their home countries for criminal activity, and the police of the UK go around, look for them, and then extradite them, send them back to their home countries to either face the charges, the trial, or indeed the sentence that may have been handed to them already, and that they may have tried to avoid by leaving and entering the UK. And obviously, that's a very serious thing. We don't want don't want the likes of dangerous criminals coming to the UK, and we don't want the UK's dangerous criminals to go abroad, because one of the good episodes that I watched last night was on yesterday, because it's a daytime programme, was very much about, part of it was about the relationship with the likes of Spain, up until really fairly recent, about 20 years ago. It's just to say, a lot of criminals from the UK went to Spain, and Spain had no extradition agreement or treaties with the UK, so that any major criminals from the UK that went to Spain could relax, not worry about having to be hauled back to the UK. They could live a life of luxury. If they have the money, they could arrange any criminal enterprises from Spain that they had maybe going on. If they're in those types of organised crime organisations, and they could relax. It was basically a haven for them, and obviously now that has changed, and that is one thing. Obviously, one of the things will be the laws and how the laws apply certainly when it comes to criminal matters and criminal proceedings. That's obviously one of the things that's going to be, just an example of the one of the many, pretty much basically everything you can think of during an everyday of a basic normal everyday of your life has to be negotiated. So it's going to be a long process, and I don't genuinely believe it's going to be taken within these 2 years that they seemingly now have legally to make these negotiations. I honestly can't see it all fitting in nicely, a nice package with a bow on top in 2 years. I don't think it'll all happen within the 2 years that we now have. Talking about Scotland, of course, as a Scotsman, I have to give my opinion, and that's why that's why I do YouTube, to give my opinion on things. Nicola Sturgeon made a statement as well, saying today's triggering of Article 50 represents a leap in the dark by the Prime Minister. Fully 9 months after the EU referendum, the UK government still cannot answer basic questions about what Brexit will mean for businesses, for the economy generally, and for the type of society we live in. Again, as I was saying, all that we've heard basically is, oh, we're leaving Europe for the last 9 months. There doesn't seem to be any serious attempts to try and start negotiations or deciding really what we want and what laws we want, what the exact setup will be. There's not been, I don't think, anything that I've seen that seems to indicate that is what the UK government has actually attempted to do the last 9 months. It doesn't seem to me that they've even sat down and think, right, what is our wish list? What would be our ideal agreements? What kind of agreements are we aiming to get? There's been nothing like that. There's been no think tank. There's been Brexit ministers appointed, but I don't think, certainly the public have not heard, and I don't believe it's happened about any serious laying out of, right, these are the blue pans, this is the ideal agreements that we want, this is what we would like to negotiate. There's nothing like that. She says, however, Nicola Sturgeon says, I wish the Prime Minister well in the negotiations which lie ahead, because a good Brexit deal for the UK is in Scotland's interest. She does say, but the UK government's hard line to Brexit is a reckless gamble, and it is clear, even at these very early stages, that the final deal is almost certain to be worse economically than the existing agreements, potentially much worse. Scotland voted decisively to remain part of Europe, but the UK government only formally responded with the dismissal of our compromise proposals to keep Scotland in the single market at the same time as the Article 50 letter was sent. Now, this is one, I read that part out because I do want to comment on this. Nicola Sturgeon has been very open about wishing there to be meetings between the devolved governments, the UK government, the Scottish Parliament, the Welsh Parliaments, and the Irish Parliaments, and all sit down and, like I was saying, kind of lay out the blueprints of, obviously, because I think that is certainly something important that needs to happen, because it's the UK governments will have. I know that the UK government can have the access to the kind of information, but I think it's important that the devolved governments sit down alongside Theresa May or whoever's going to be in charge of the Brexit negotiations, to sit down and say, well, this is our standings now. This is the type of trade that we would like to protect. These are the areas that benefit us economically through the year. This is how much we trade with this area of the world, or this is how much we trade with Europe, and this is the kind of even the logistics, the setups of again of how businesses will be. Each government will know better than just the general UK government of what setups, what kind of again procedures, rules, laws that each country needs to protect the trade and industries within that particular country. So I certainly think that over these next 2 years, the devolved government should have a major part in these negotiations. Uh, she also says to the Scotland, she has confirmed, says the people of Scotland must have the final say on their future once the terms of Brexit are clear. Nicola Sturgeon spoke really just a while ago, last week or the week before, talking about another independence referendum. And again, continuing from that, talk about we really do need to all sit down. All the governments need to sit down and have a part in the Brexit negotiations. Yes, I am pro independence. I am pro SNP, but I say it's we have to wait. It's common sense now. I think we have to wait until the negotiations are done. And like I said, I still genuinely don't believe that will be within the 2 years. I think we need, before Scotland rushes ahead for any other another independence referendum. I think we need to look at Brexit. We need to look at life after European Union, see what is agreed, see what obviously what these terms and conditions are, and have a good look at whether whether this suits Scotland and even how it goes on. Unfortunately, I kind of think that we may have to wait until after we leave the European Union to have another independence referendum because we need to look at both the agreements that will be made, and I believe what life after the UK being a member of the European Union is like. We need to see what it's actually like before we rush into another independence referendum. But I do generally think that people of Scotland are entitled to their say, to our say, because I am Scottish and I am living here in Scotland. We are entitled to our view on things. Again, I keep saying it, but that's exactly why people of Scotland voted to have a Scottish Parliament to represent us and our interests. And I do think that the people of Scotland do need to have their say eventually on this whole situation once it's negotiated. Once we leave Europe now, it's just such a shame that it seems we are going ahead with it. To leave Europe instead of maybe perhaps sitting down and trying to renegotiate terms, and instead of going ahead just plainly, going ahead with leaving rather than trying to renegotiate any things. But that seems to be the attitude of the Conservative government. They're just, they're just blindly going ahead with it. Like I said, hopefully the UK, all the UK governments will be involved in the negotiations. But certainly, it's a very historic day. It's going to change a lot of things for future generations. How this is all handled is going to be very important indeed.